My mother, or Mamo, grandmother in Irish, looks from her window in April 2020 during the first major lockdown in Ireland. The older generations were advised to cocoon and keep their distance from other people. I felt lucky to live close by so I could visit often. Just a couple of weeks before this photo was taken, my father, who was already in hospital, contracted COVID-19. She wouldn't see him again in person until July of that year, and he died the day after seeing her through the window of the nursing home. So my name is Una OConnor, and I'm a photographer from Dublin in Ireland. I'm mainly focused on photographing my local area where I grew up. It's steeped in local history, and I'm obsessed with walking in this place and capturing what I feel is its magic and adding a sort of fairy tale slant to it.
The story, the picture, I mean, this is a heavy, obviously very heavy thing that you talked about. So can you tell us more about this?
What can I tell you about this? Well, yeah, my mother, she was obviously living on her own completely because my dad was in hospital at the time. And we knew that her memory wasn't great. It wasn't until sometime after that, she was actually diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So it was quite fortunate that I had moved back to the local area just literally in the December 2019, which meant that I could walk down to her every day because I was working from home and it was fairly quiet, to keep an eye on her, and we were being so careful because everyone was quite scared and didn't really know how infectious things were. And you would only spend 15 minutes in the house and you'd be wearing a mask and you'd be telling her to keep her distance. But of course, because she had developed Alzheimer's, which we weren't 100% sure of at the time, she didn't understand, and she'd be constantly asking the same questions of why weren't we staying longer and why were we wearing masks, So it was absolutely a difficult time for all of us to communicate that to her. Slowly but surely, we just start spending more time there. I suppose when we realized once we were isolated, we weren't going to pass it on to her,
So did your dad die from COVID?
They said, so basically he contracted it while he was already in hospital, and then he was moved to a different hospital where he became very ill with it, but they said he recovered from it. But what I would say to you is that it very much weakened him. He lost a lot of weight, and then when they said he was over it, he was getting moved to a nursing home, but he only lasted 2 weeks in the nursing home. And the first 2 weeks that he was there, he was in isolation. So we weren't actually allowed to visit him. So essentially that was the first time we saw him in person again for months. And it was through a window. And it was really, if you thought about it too much, you would, you don't dwell on it too much. There was a thorn bush between the window and us. And I went up and I looked in the window, and he looked like somebody who was just already gone. He looked very unwell. He was lying in a bed. He did recognize me and he raised his hand and he sort of waved through the window. But when I saw how bad he looked, I said, I need to get my mother up here now. So I brought her up the next day. And she was so confused about why she couldn't go into him, and she was trying to get closer to the window with the bush there. And it was very strange, but he saw her and he literally died the next day. Isn't it one of those things where it's like he was waiting to see her? Yeah.
That's so sad. I'm gonna cry.
The saving grace is that because her memory is not good, it didn't affect her as badly as it might have if she had all her faculties,
Yeah.
So the trauma of it, she hasn't remembered, which is great, There's some small mercies. Yeah.
And what date was the picture that you took of your mom?
I think that was April 2020. So St. Patrick's Day in March is a big event here. And that St. Patrick's Day was cancelled. That's when we first went into lockdown in Ireland. And
is that a big time in the streets?
Yeah, huge, massive parade. It's usually a couple of days, 3-day festival. And then the day itself, the 17th of March, is a huge parade in the city centre. And
what do they usually do during that parade?
I mean, people travel from all over the world to perform in it. Bands, performance artists, dancers. There's usually huge floats with gorgeous stuff to see, you know, in the parade. But so for that to be cancelled, for people not to travel to Ireland to do it, massive, huge. So you knew something was something serious was afoot, you know. So that would have been the 17th of March. We went into lockdown here then, and that photo was just taken in April, so very shortly after that. Yeah.
And you have a young child. Was she able to see your mom during that time?
Yeah, so she would come down with me to the house and initially mostly stay outside, you know, but because we didn't, you know, it's funny to look back on now because we were just so unsure, and we stayed for only short times. But like I said, we soon enough increased that and spent more time with her because we realized she needed us. You know, I mean, I was feeding her, I was bringing her down food every day and bringing it in because we were starting to realize that she wasn't really looking after herself enough, you know? So, yeah.
You're speaking in past tense. Is she still with us?
Oh, no, she is. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
She is. And we've somebody living with her full time now. Yeah.
That must have been hard.
Yeah, well, what we did was once we realized what she needed, and once this first summer, I guess, of lockdown, things were lifted a bit, you know, in Ireland. So I have a lot of siblings. So we basically made a little roster, and each of us would stay overnight with her. And then just this year in August, my sister and her family moved in full time. So they're with her all the time now.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. That's why she has
so the big Irish Catholic family.
Yeah,
still exists.
Totally. We are absolutely the cliche. 7 children she had.
Oh, that's so sweet. Wonderful. Well, thank you. That was great.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that last episode and learned something new. Don't forget to tune in to the next episode to see what other crazy, incredible, creative, and empowering lessons you can learn from the photos in this book.